This NFC East, very wide open. So let's head down to our nation's capital. Kevin Sheehan does a great job, ESPN 980. You can hear him weekdays 7 to 11 a.m., and they are the flagship station of the Washington Redskins, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Kevin, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
My pleasure. How are you guys?
Well, I'm doing great. So this is a Redskins team, like I was saying, this entire NFC East. We know that the team, like the Giants, they're expected to win this division. The Cowboys, we'll see what happens with Ezekiel Elliott, but I can't really get a pulse on this Redskins team, and neither could Joe Theismann when we talked to him the other day. So how do you view the Redskins?
Yeah, I think everybody sort of feels the same way. I mean, they didn't play well in the preseason, but as we all know as football fans, that stuff rarely translates anyway. I mean, they were a very good offensive team last year. I mean, they were at times, one of the better offensive passing teams in the league. I don't know why that would change. I mean, the obvious reason is they lost their offensive coordinator and they lost Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. But they still have Kirk Cousins. They still have Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis. Jamison Crowder really turned into a very effective slot receiver. They've got high hopes for Terrell Pryor, after signing him in free agency. I think there's a chance, again, they'll be very good on offense. Defensively, they upgraded their talent, but how much better will the defense be? Because it was, without question, the worst defense in the NFL and arguably the worst third down defense in recent NFL history.
You take a look at that offense, and you were talking about the wide receivers. They lose Garçon, they lose Jackson. I know you say they could still be a good offense, but how much of a step back is it after you lose those two guys?
Well, we're going to find out pretty quickly. There have been some issues in the preseason with sort of Kirk getting in rhythm with Pryor in particular, and Josh Doxson, their first-round pick last year, which everybody has high hopes for, has been injured again. He just can't stay healthy. But Jordan Reed's his favorite wide receiver. Jamison Crowder was probably, if not his second favorite receiver last year, certainly in the top three. Jackson wasn't always available. Garçon's going to be missed because he was, without question, their toughest competitor and really their most reliable guy offensively. So they'll miss him. But, you watch Pryor and Doxson in practice, and from a size standpoint and from a talent standpoint, they actually look more than capable. It's just getting on the same page, I think, with the starting quarterback. But Jordan Reed, healthy, is the second best pass-catching tight end in the league after Gronkowski. He's that good. I think you guys probably have a sense of how good he is because he's had some of his best games against the Eagles. I think the real question mark for this team is, did they get better defensively? If they did, I'd be surprised if they're not competitive this year.
You take a look also with this offense, and we know the Eagles, their defensive line is very good. In the back end, they're not that strong. This run game this year, you get a tough task with the offensive line, week one up against the Eagles' defensive line. But what do you make out of this run game this year with some of the new additions?
Well, they don't, Rob Kelly last year, came in early to mid-season for Matt Jones, who they waived. They drafted Samaje Perine from Oklahoma in the fourth round. They like him a lot. Gruden really likes Kelly. He thinks he's matured and improved and, is sort of predicting in a very subtle way a really big year for him. Thompson's very good as a third down pass catching back. I mean, he's excellent. I mean, is he Sproles in his prime? No, but he's a playmaker, and I think they'll be okay there. But they didn't run the ball very consistently last year. This was a pass-first team. And, again, not to beat a dead horse, I'd be surprised if they don't throw it, primarily as their means of moving the football this year. And I'd also be surprised if they're not relatively effective doing it.
Talking to Kevin Sheehan right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Lane Johnson was out 10 games last year for the Philadelphia Eagles because of the suspension, and he came out with some juice, no pun intended, to the Players Tribune as he was talking about they're going to go down to D.C. week one. They're going to surprise people. They're going to, kick the crap out of the Redskins. Zach Brown fired back at him. Had those comments generally play over in the Redskins locker room?
Ignored, I think, mostly. I mean, by most of us media players. I mean, we mentioned it. Look, the Eagles are favored right now. It's anywhere from a pick 'em, to Eagles -1 in this game. So it wouldn't be a big shocker to Vegas anyway. I will say this: they missed him last year because Kerrigan had two of his better games.
No question.
Of the year against the Eagles without Lane Johnson there.
Are you surprised that the Eagles are favored on this one?
I think it has to do with two things. I think number one, the Eagles seem to be this chic pick right now, to be a surprise team and a playoff team in the NFC, and I think that's picked up some momentum, and clearly Vegas is buying into it. And I think the Redskins really, this was a team that won the division 2 years ago. They were within a game from returning to the playoffs last year. They had the Giants at home. The Giants had nothing to play for on New Year's Day, and the Skins laid an egg, or they would have been a playoff team. But I think some of the off-season stuff, the McLuhan thing with the general manager, the not getting Kirk signed to a long-term deal, and the perception anyway that this could be Cousins last year in D.C. I think a lot of that has made people think that the Skins are back to their old tricks with turmoil and a lot of organizational issues, which may be the case. But the truth is, on the field with respect to the roster, it looks like they had a decent off season, and assuming, I think for this team this year, and we talked about this the other morning, Cooley and I did, getting off to a quick start will be crucial, because if there are organizational issues, which there have been in the past, and they start off 1-4 or 0-3, it could snowball in a hurry. I think this game actually Sunday's a big game for them. They open with the Eagles at home and the Rams in week 2 on the road. And so on paper, they've got a chance to get off to a decent start, but that's what I think went into the Eagles, the point spread moving from Skins -2 to Eagles -1. I think it's a lot of that stuff.
You talk a lot about this defense and how they have to be better. You take a look at the Giants, what we saw out of them last year. They were terrible 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Were awesome defensively. How much better do you think this defense gets? I know you can't get worse, but how much better does this defense get?
Well, I'll start with this. They were the worst third and 8 or longer defense in modern NFL history last year, and They were the worst third down defense in several years, just on third and anything. If they had been a horrible defense last year instead of the worst in recent memory, they would have won 10 or 11 games last year. So if they improve, and they've got, they're going to start 5 to 6 new guys, probably 7 new guys in their rotation, and this works and it fits, and the new defensive coordinator, Greg Minuski, is a major upgrade over Joe Barry, and they're, say, top 20 in the league instead of 32nd. This team, I think, has a chance to be a team that contends in the division. Most people don't see it that way. I'm not being a homer. I'm just looking at this team last year. If they were, just slightly better defensively, they would have been a 10 or 11 win team. I think they'll be better. How much better, I don't know. They've got better talent at safety, with Swearinger in particular. Sua Craven's just left the team. And he was a playmaker, and they had high hopes for him. But they've got DJ Swearinger. They got an inside linebacker in Zach Brown who can run. And so far, guys, Jonathan Allen, their first-round pick from Alabama, looks like the real deal. And if that all plays out, based on what we've seen so far, they should be improved there.
That's going to be a fun thing to look at, because the Eagles also drafted a defensive lineman, Derek Barnett. Allen and Barnett, it seems like the ceiling both very high for both of them.
Yeah, remember, Allen was a top 3 projected pick. There was some arthritis in his shoulders that made a lot of teams back off, and the Skins feel like they stole one. Now, we've heard that from them before. They've never been the smartest franchise in the division, figuring out something that the rest of the league never figured out. But he's really looked like the real deal, and he's a first-rate, sort of teammate and guy. There are a lot of high hopes that he is the first star interior defensive lineman they've had in the organization in a long time.
You're closer to the situation than we are. The Cravens report how he was retiring, and they talked him out. What's the latest on that? I know you just mentioned it a few seconds ago.
Jay Gruden talked about it earlier. To be honest with you, I don't know. Usually we have sort of an inkling of what really is going on there. We can't figure out whether it's a guy that just doesn't want to play football anymore, if he's got family issues, if he's got personal issues. There's not a lot there that is obvious at this point, but I would be surprised if he comes back to the team anytime soon.
I'll ask you this, Kevin Sheehan, before we let you run. We know how open this division may seem. The Giants many people will probably pick them to win this division, but you can make an argument for any one of these four teams to win the division. I know the Zeke thing is still looming, and maybe we'll get some more clarity on that today. But if you had to rank these teams in the NFC East from 4 to 1, how do you rank them in your mind?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think everybody feels that it's wide open. I think the Redskins would be the one team that most people would say you can't make a case for. But I agree with you. I think you can make a case for any one of these teams. We've seen it year in and year out, especially in recent years, that you can go from last to first, and it never seems to work out the way it's predicted. This time last year, the NFC East was thought to be the worst division in football, now the best. I think the Giants, just because defensively, it's hard for me to think that they're not a top 3, top 4 defense in the NFL. Defense travels. I'll take them one. I do like the Eagles. I think they've got a really good chance, and I think Carson Wentz is the real deal. So I'll just take, I'll take a flyer and say the Eagles are 2. And, the Cowboys and Redskins, I think, are right there. I think the Cowboys are the wild card because of Elliott. And I think the Redskins, if they are as good as they were offensively, if there's not a big drop-off with the wide receiver situation, I think they've got a chance to be really good, like much better than most people think. With that said, this organization's a bit fragile right now with some of the things that happened, and they need some good things to happen early for them to be in the hunt. But I'll just say Skins Cowboys tied for 3rd.
With the Eagles, and last one before we let Kevin Sheehan run, from ESPN 980, the Redskins affiliate, their flagship station, you look at that team, and everyone's going to look at Wentz, and you feel very good about Wentz, but with some deficiencies in the back end, and also a coach that is an ambiguous head coach right now. Some people love him, some people hate him. Tough to get a read on him. A lot of people are skeptical in this area, including myself. With Doug Peterson, why do you have that great sense of confidence when you get to some of these, further deficiencies that I just pointed out?
Well, I mean, I guess the thing about Philadelphia that I really watched Carson Wentz. I mean, we all sort of watched the other teams in the division all year long, and he just looked like the real deal to me. And it just seems that he'll, if he takes that next step, and you've got a real sort of top 10 to top 12 quarterback in this league, you're going to be competitive. I like the moves they made to fill some of the spots in their skill position players. With a Jeffrey and a Torrey Smith, you've got some backs. By the way, my surprise draft pick for the Redskins in the 6th round this year was Corey Clement. I loved him at Wisconsin, and I saw the other day that he made the team, which doesn't surprise me. I don't know if he'll get any time there. But then you added some players defensively. Fletcher Cox has been one of the best defensive players in the division. Is Darby working out with that trade? I don't, you guys would have to tell me, but I just always have this sense, and had this sense last year, that the Eagles were better and that they had a chance in the next few years to be a good team. But I don't have a strong opinion on Peterson like Mike Lombardi does, and maybe you do,
ridiculous.
One way or the other.
Hey, I'm very skeptical of Doug Peterson, and I think Darby's going to end up working out. But I've been skeptical of Peterson, and I even thought Lombardi was way over the top and way too, premature. 16 games into the guy's career. Let's just not say, hey, it's a general consensus that this guy, without a doubt, is going to be a failure. He was way over the top, ridiculous.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit out of line. But the sense down here, I don't know that anybody really has a sense of Peterson or even McAdoo at this point. I mean, to me, McAdoo at times seemed to be outwitted, clock management, game management situations last year, even more than Peterson was. But right now, I don't know that the head coaching overall in the division is super strong. But I think some of the young quarterbacks, between Cousins, Prescott, and Wentz, I don't know if Kirk will be here next year. He probably won't be, but there's some good young quarterbacks in the division for sure.
Kevin, great stuff. We appreciate it as always. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.